It looks like an ordinary penny. Brown, quiet, forgotten in a jar, a drawer, maybe even your pocket right now. Dated 1964. No mint mark. A coin so common that most people wouldn't bend down to pick it up off the sidewalk. And yet, this exact penny has been linked to reported sales reaching as high as $844,000. In rare cases, whispers even climb into seven figures. 1 cent. 1 year. One tiny detail most people never look for. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because fortunes aren't always loud. Sometimes they hide in plain sight. Imagine this for a moment. A man cleaning out an old coffee can of coins. A woman sorting through her late father's change jar. A roll of pennies from the bank, dumped onto the table out of boredom. No lottery ticket, no insider tip, just copper and curiosity. And then one coin stops you cold. The date looks strange. The surface doesn't feel right. The details seem doubled. Suddenly your heart rate changes. Could this be one of those stories? What if the coin everyone ignores is the one that changes everything? This is the story of the 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, and why it may be one of the most misunderstood, underestimated, and potentially life-altering coins ever struck. Act 1 begins in a year of chaos and change. 1964 was not a normal year for American coinage. The country was consuming coins at a historic rate. Silver was disappearing from circulation. The U.S. Mint was under pressure like never before, running dies harder, faster, and longer than intended. Quality control bent, corners were cut, and mistakes slipped through. Here's the first twist. A no-mint mark on a 1964 penny doesn't mean it's missing something. It means it was struck in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia produced billions of them. That's why people stop paying attention. But when a mint is overwhelmed, volume becomes the enemy of precision. Dies clashed, dies cracked, dies doubled. Planchets were mixed, misfed, and misaligned. And in the middle of this controlled chaos, a small number of Lincoln cents were born very differently from the rest. Most collectors never make it past the date. They should, because some 1964 cents show dramatic double die features. And not the weak kind you need a microscope to convince yourself are real. We're talking bold doubling in Lincoln's eye, beard, and lettering. Doubling you can see once you know where to look. Doubling that turns a 1-cent coin into a 5-figure conversation. But that's only the beginning. Then come the surface anomalies. Unusual satin-like finishes, sharper strikes, a texture that doesn't match standard circulation cents. These coins sparked decades of debate, denial, and fascination. Were they experimental? Were they special strikes? Were they never supposed to leave the mint? Enter the 1964 special mint set cent. For years, the U.S. Mint denied their existence. No official records, no announcements, and yet they exist. Verified, authenticated, incredibly rare. With fewer than a few dozen known examples, these coins stand apart from everything else dated 1964. And here's the kicker. They have no mint mark. Collectors didn't believe it at first. Then the grading services weighed in. Then the auction houses. And then the prices exploded. Which brings us to the moment that made headlines. A top condition 1964 Lincoln cent, attributed to an ultra-rare striking variety and preserved in near-perfect condition, reportedly sold for as much as $844,000. Not because it was gold, not because it was silver, but because it was different, and almost nobody noticed. Let that sink in. A coin that looks, at a glance, like pocket change. A coin millions of Americans have handled without a second thought, quietly stepping into the realm of elite collectibles. And here's where the suspense deepens. What if there are more? Every rare coin discovery in history shares one unsettling truth. They're usually found by accident, long after the year has passed, long after the coins have scattered into the wild, mixed into jars, rolls, estates, and forgotten boxes. Most people never check closely enough to realize what they're holding. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you examined a penny under good light? Not glanced at it, examined it. The date, the letters, the edges, the texture. Because some 1964 cents reveal secrets only after you slow down. Tiny doubling on liberty. Extra thickness in God We Trust. A strange sharpness in Lincoln's profile. Or the opposite weakness where strength should be. Errors that don't announce themselves. They wait. And then there are the off-metal strikes. Cent designs pressed onto the wrong planchets. Foreign metal. Experimental blanks. These are the unicorns of numismatics. Most are destroyed before they ever leave the mint. A few escape. And when they do, they rewrite price guides overnight. Point 1 Authenticated off-metal or special strike cent in pristine condition doesn't compete with other pennies. It competes with trophies. Here's the sudden revelation most people never hear. Condition can be everything. Point 2 Coins. Same year. Same design. Same metal. One is worth a cent. The other is worth a house. Why? Because survival matters. Because perfection is rare. Because time is ruthless to copper. A 1964 cent graded at the absolute top of the scale is not just uncommon. It's extraordinary. And extraordinary coins don't follow normal price rules. That's how you get shock numbers. That's how rumors of million-dollar cents are born. Not from fantasy, but from the collision of rarity, condition, and demand. And demand is real. The generation watching this right now grew up when coins mattered. When you could buy something with change. When parents and grandparents saved jars, just in case. Those jars are being opened now. Estates are being settled. Collections are being rediscovered. And every time that happens, the question returns. Did we miss one? Here's the cliffhanger that keeps experts awake. Some of the most valuable coins ever sold were unknown for decades. Not hidden in vaults. Not locked away. But sitting quietly, misidentified, underestimated, ignored. So what are the odds that every rare 1964 cent has already been found? History suggests not good. Which means the real story may still be unfolding. And that leads us to the final act. This isn't about hype. It's about awareness. No one is saying every 1964 penny is worth a fortune. Most aren't. But some are different. And the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often invisible to the untrained eye. That's the opportunity. Because you don't need permission to look. You don't need insider access. You don't need to be wealthy to start. You just need attention, patience, and the willingness to question what everyone else dismisses. Somewhere, right now, a 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is waiting. In a roll. In a jar. In a drawer. In a box that hasn't been opened in years. And the person who finds it won't look like a genius beforehand. They never do. They just look closer than everyone else. So the next time you hear that a penny isn't worth your time, remember this story. Remember the quiet year. The overwhelmed mint. The hidden errors. The reported six-figure and even seven-figure outcomes that started with 1 cent because wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it whispers from the bottom of a change jar. Most people would never imagine that a penny from their pocket could change their life. A single cent brown, dull, ordinary. But what if I told you that one specific penny, a 2006 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, has been whispered about in collector circles as a coin that, under the right conditions, has sparked valuations climbing into the hundreds of thousands, even brushing against the million-dollar fantasy line? What if the coin you've ignored for years is the one hiding a secret powerful enough to rewrite your financial story? This isn't a fairy tale. It's a hunt. And it begins with a coin so common that almost nobody looks twice at it. Act 1 begins where disbelief lives. The year is 2006. Gas is expensive. The internet is loud. And the U.S. Mint is quietly striking hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents in Philadelphia. These coins leave the presses without a mint mark, exactly as intended. Nothing unusual, nothing rare, or so it seems, because hidden inside that ocean of copper-plated zinc were a handful of coins that didn't follow the rules. Collectors would later notice subtle irregularities, strange distortions, doubling that shouldn't be there. Surface anomalies that didn't match normal wear. At first, they were dismissed. After all, how valuable could a modern penny really be? Then the stories began. Coins pulled from circulation. Coins found in old jars. Coins sent to professional graders and returned with jaw-dropping attributions. And suddenly, the most boring penny of the 21st century was being mentioned in the same breath as legendary rarities. Here's the shock. In ultra-rare circumstances, error-laden 2006 no-mint mark Lincoln cents, certified, authenticated, and preserved in top condition, have been reported to command staggering prices. One headline that rippled through the numismatic world claimed a sale approaching $844,000. A penny, less than 20 years old. How does that happen? Act 2 is where the suspense tightens. The key is errors. Not damage. Not wear. Errors. The kind that occur during the minting process itself. Mistakes that can never be repeated in exactly the same way. Think about that. A momentary malfunction. A die that shifted at the wrong time. A planchet that didn't belong. A strike that happened under impossible conditions. These are frozen accidents, locked in metal on some 2006 no-mint mark cents. Collectors have reported dramatic double dies, where Lincoln's profile appears to echo itself, especially in the lettering. On others, the date looks distorted, stretched, or warped, as if time itself hiccuped mid-strike. There are reports of off-metal errors, wrong planchet strikes, and striking anomalies so severe that experts initially refused to believe they came from a modern cent. And here's the twist most people miss. The no-mint mark isn't the error. It's the disguise. Philadelphia coins aren't marked. That means these pennies blend in perfectly. They don't announce themselves. They hide in plain sight, in your change, in your drawers, in jars you haven't opened in years. Ask yourself this. How many pennies have you passed over because they looked normal? Now imagine one of those normal coins is actually a once-in-a-generation minting mistake. Imagine holding it for decades without knowing. That's not just suspense. That's urgency. Because condition changes everything. A coin with an extraordinary error might be interesting. A coin with an extraordinary error in near-perfect, uncirculated condition becomes explosive. Professional grading services don't just look at the mistake. They examine luster, strike quality, preservation, and originality. The difference between a coin worth a few $100s and one whispered about in six-figure conversations can be microscopic. That's where the jaw-dropping numbers come in. Reported market activity has shown that when a modern cent combines a dramatic, undeniable mint error with top-tier certification, collectors with deep pockets take notice. Competitive bidding, private sales, auction rooms where breath is held just a little longer. In those rare moments, logic bends, and history is made. $844,000 isn't the price of a penny. It's the price of a perfect storm. And then there's the million-dollar dream. Let's be clear. No ordinary 2006 penny is worth millions. But numismatics has taught us this lesson over and over again. The impossible happens when rarity, story, and condition collide. Coins once dismissed as trivial have gone on to define entire eras of collecting. The idea that a flawless, uniquely documented, unprecedented 2006 error cent could someday break the seven-figure barrier isn't madness. It's speculation fueled by precedent. And speculation is the oxygen of this market. Here's the cliffhanger most people aren't ready for. Experts believe not all of these coins have been found. Act 3 is where everything comes together. Somewhere, right now, a coin sits unnoticed. It might be in a coffee can in a garage. It might be in a child's piggy bank. It might be sliding across a counter at a gas station. The person holding it has no idea that collectors would beg to examine it under magnification. This is why this story matters. You don't need insider connections. You don't need to be wealthy. You need awareness, a magnifying glass, patience, and the courage to question what everyone else ignores. Look closely at your 2006 Lincoln cents. Examine the lettering, the date, Lincoln's profile. Search for doubling, distortions, odd textures, or anything that makes you pause. If something feels off, trust that instinct. The greatest finds in numismatic history often began with a simple question: why does this look different? And if you ever do find something extraordinary, don't rush. Authentication matters. Grading matters. Provenance matters. The market rewards those who respect the process. Because in this world, a single cent can become a legacy. That's the power of hidden value. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching late into the night. And that's why, after you hear this, you may never look at your change the same way again. The next time a penny rests in your palm, remember this story. Remember that history doesn't always announce itself with gold or silver. Sometimes it whispers through copper. And sometimes it waits for the one person curious enough to listen.